He's already reaching for his wallet, but before he can fumble out a business card, his cell phone rings. Yes? As he listens to the caller, his smile fades. What is it, Amal asks after he hangs up. His face gone grave, he ignores the question, reaching past Amal to tug at Rafi's sleeve. Excuse me. What, says Rafi, annoyed. I'm afraid there's a problem. Yes, we know. Give Amal your card, like she said, and we'll... No, the manager says. This is something else, something serious. An Arabian Airlines flight out of Kuwait City has been... His phone rings again. More bad news. What's going on, says Amal. Has the plane been hijacked? No response. It's like she's suddenly invisible. The manager stares at Rafi, but Rafi stares right back, waiting for the guy to answer Amal's question. 2, he finally says. 2 planes. At least 2. 8:41. Another halal agent, a thin, wiry man with a mustache, arrives at the riverbank. The agents already on scene have opened up additional bottles of evidence, and the gathering now seems less like an arrest and more like a party, with everyone except the handcuffed guest of honor in a festive mood. Hey, Mustafa, Samir calls to the new arrival. About time you got here. What do we have? Another Jewish wine smuggling conspiracy. Samir laughs and offers him an open bottle, but Mustafa waves it away. What is it really? More Scotch whiskey? A mixed assortment. Whiskey mostly, looks like, but also some vodka and some horrible cherry concoction. This one tastes like coffee, Isaac calls from the boat. I'm hoping for a nice arak myself, Samir says. Just the thing with Ramadan coming up, says Mustafa, his tone more than his words causing Samir to raise an eyebrow. Mustafa nods at the weeping boat pilot. This is our smuggler? Yes, Samir says, still reacting to the Ramadan comment. A real hard case, as you can see. I suppose he didn't wait to see if anyone would show up to meet him. Why bother? If we know about this shipment, you can bet Saddam knows we know. The real shipment's probably being unloaded upriver somewhere while we're busy with this decoy. Busy. Mustafa shakes his head. You better hope no one with a camera catches you being busy with that bottle. What's gotten into you this morning, Mustafa? Why are you late? My car wouldn't start. And for that you're being an asshole? You've been fighting with the wives again, haven't you? Which one, Noor? Mustafa points to the dusty hatchback he drove to the pier. Does that look like something I'd borrow from Noor? Ah, Samir says. Fadwa then. That's a shame. Still, no need to take it out on me. Let's just knock this off before the Post does an expose on corruption at Halal. Fine, fine, Samir says. All right, everybody, let's start wrapping things up. The other agents, clustered by the boat, are all staring at something in the sky to the south. Even the boat pilot has stopped crying and raised his head to look. What, Samir says, turning. Huh, he's awfully low. Mustafa is the last to look around. He catches only the briefest glimpse of the jet before it passes overhead, engines screaming. The impact is hidden from view by the structure of the bridge. They'll watch it later, of course, replayed endlessly on television, but in the moment it's only a loud boom, followed by the screams of people who can see it. Then for a second there is silence, a pocket of stillness during which some instinct makes Mustafa look not towards the hidden tower, but at the car that brought him here. Fadwa, he says, and a shockwave passes beneath his feet, leaving a different world in its wake. The Library of Alexandria, a user-edited reference source. United Arab States. This page is currently protected from editing to deal with repeated acts of vandalism. To suggest changes, please contact an administrator. The United Arab States is a federal constitutional republic made up of 22 states, 1 federal district, 2 religious districts, and several territories. Situated largely in the Eastern Hemisphere, it occupies the entirety of the Arabian Peninsula and the Levant, most of Mesopotamia, North Africa, and Northeast Africa, and numerous islands in the surrounding waters. It shares land borders with Turkey, Kurdistan, Persia, and various African nations. At over 14 million square kilometers, and with more than 360 million people, the United Arab States is the world's second largest country by total area and third largest by population. History. The UAS was born from the ashes of the Arab League, a loose federation of Middle Eastern states that broke away from the Ottoman Empire near the end of the 19th century. Having successfully, if tentatively, declared independence from the empire, the members of the League fell almost immediately to fighting amongst themselves along clan and sectarian lines. The bloody civil war continued until an attempt at reconquest by the Ottomans caused the League to once again unite against a common foe. Supported by a newly independent Egypt and the armies of the House of Saud, the League routed the Ottoman invasion force. Following the armistice, the victors gathered in Egypt to discuss their future. In what became known as the Miracle of Alexandria, the various parties managed to set aside their differences and agree on a plan to form a new and more lasting union, one nation under God. At its founding, the UAS consisted of 13 states: Arabia, Bahrain, Egypt, the Emirates, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, Palestine, Qatar, Syria, and Yemen, and the religious district of Mecca-Medina. The nation's capital was initially at Cairo, but within a few years, during the presidency of Abdulaziz ibn Saud, it was moved to Riyadh. The new nation's geographical location made it a nexus of international trade. Despite an ongoing feud between Egypt and the federal government over control of the Suez Canal, the economy grew rapidly. The discovery of major petroleum reserves in the 1910s added further to the economic boom. While Christian Europe tore itself apart in war, the UAS embarked on an ambitious project of industrialization. Towards the end of the 1930s, war broke out again in Europe and Asia. The UAS attempted to remain neutral, but German and Italian threats against the Muslims of North Africa and Japanese aggression in Malaya and Indonesia made this impossible. In 1941, the UAS unleashed its military might against the Axis. By 1943, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and Mauritania had all been liberated and joined the Union. In July 1944, a newly armed and trained Maghrebi invasion force stormed the beaches of southern France, while allied Arab, Persian, Turkish, and Kurdish forces captured Rome, and the Russian Orthodox Army launched its own series of offensives against the German Eastern Front. In August 1945, after a third atomic bomb was dropped on Tokyo, Japan surrendered, ending the war. In December 1946, Adolf Hitler was beheaded at Nuremberg. And then there's a series of headings. 1948, Israel, the Orthodox Union, and the beginning of the Cold Crusade. President Nasser and the Arab Unity Party. One small step for a Muslim. The Islamic Awakening and the war in Afghanistan. Black Arabs, Somalia and Sudan joined the Union. The Mexican Gulf War. 11/9 and the War on Terror. On November 9, 2001, Christian fundamentalists hijacked 4 commercial passenger jetliners. They crashed 2 of them into the Tigris and Euphrates World Trade Towers in downtown Baghdad, Iraq, and a third into the Arab Defense Ministry headquarters in the Federal District of Riyadh. The 4th plane, which is believed to have been bound for either the presidential palace in Riyadh or possibly Mecca, crashed in Arabia's empty quarter after its passengers attempted to retake control from the hijackers. Responsibility for the attacks was claimed by the World Christian Alliance, a North American white supremacist group based in the Rocky Mountain Independent Territories. In retaliation, UAS airborne troops captured the city of Denver, and UAS Special Forces backed by strike aircraft launched raids against Alliance strongholds in the surrounding countryside. Thousands of Alliance troops were captured or killed, but the Alliance leadership remained at large. Even as the fighting in the Rockies continued, President Bondar used his 2002 State of the Union address to announce a broader war on terror that would include preemptive attacks against regimes that aid, harbor, or sponsor terrorists. The President made special mention of America, the United Kingdom, and North Korea, branding them an axis of evil whose attempts to develop weapons of mass destruction would no longer be tolerated. In March of 2003, coalition forces launched a successful invasion of America. A provisional government was established in the so-called Green Zone in Washington, D.C. Hopes for a quick transition to a stable democracy were dashed by outbreaks of violence between rival American factions and by the rise of an anti-Arab insurgency. In 2006, with coalition casualties mounting and no end to the war in sight, the National Party of God suffered heavy losses during the midterm congressional elections. Candidates closely affiliated with the House of Saud fared especially poorly. Now, with the Arab Unity Party once again in control of both Congress and the executive branch, there is hope that the war in America will soon be over. But even as the first troops return home, there are rumors of new terror threats against the Arab homeland, and fears that Arabia's most challenging days still lie ahead.